it's always important to check our settings in our Google Forms to make sure that everything is going to work correctly or the way that we think it should. So we're going to click on that gear icon in the top right for our settings. And here under General, we always suggest to collect email addresses, especially if students are logged in to ClassLink or they're using a district device. This collect email addresses almost does naming convention so that students don't even have to write their name on the piece of paper. Google will try to find their information if they're logged in through ClassLink and automatically put their student email on their work. The worst case scenario, and what we've heard from teachers, is that we forget to have this selected and then we don't know who turned in what work because we have to ask the student what their name is. But again, if students can type in their own name or choose it, then they may choose someone else's or choose a different name. So we always collect email addresses because we know that whoever is usually logged into a district Chromebook, that email that's associated with that login will automatically be collected for us. Most of the time you will not want response receipts. These are basically copies of what students have said and it will be emailed back to them. Most teachers say that they do not want that in case it's a formative assessment or you're trying to make sure that you know exactly what students are thinking. Underneath require sign-in, we usually say restrict to users in Lake County schools just to make sure that only Lake County people will be able to fill out this information. It's up to you if you want to choose to limit this to one response, meaning students can only take this form one time. If you're creating a quiz, most teachers recommend to do just one response. Underneath that, again, you have some additional options where you can allow students to edit their submission after they click that submit button. Most teachers say that they do not want that option if it is a quiz though. The last option is very good to see summary charts and text responses. This will allow students to see kind of an overview. It'll show other answers by students, but it will not show the names of who said what. So see summary charts and text responses is a great option, especially if you're doing something that's collaborative or you want students to engage with other students' thinking. However, for a quiz, most teachers recommend leaving this unchecked. I'm going to move on to the presentation tab, and we'll save our settings at the very end. So under the presentation tab, you have an option to show the progress bar, and this is kind of a moot point for a lot of people because they will try to create short surveys or short quizzes. But the progress bar will notify anyone that's filling out this Google form how many pages they have completed. So this might say you've completed pages 2 of 3, 3 of 3, and so on. If you only have one page of questions, this option is not very exciting because most of the time it will say you have done 0 of 1 pages. Shuffle question order is a very good option if you are creating a quiz, because this means that if students should try to share answers or if they do happen to sit kind of relatively close to one another and can see each other's screen, this will try to prevent some cheating. So one student, question number 1 is theirs, but the student sitting next to them, that same question might be their question number 4. So this just shuffles some of the questions so that we can avoid cheating. Show link to submit another response is an interesting option if you ever have to have anyone fill out the form multiple times. Most of the time, if we are having students fill out a quiz, we don't want that unless we are trying to have students practice and re-practice and re-attempt some sort of form or quiz in hopes that they're learning and gaining something from that experience. I do want to point out that if you limit to one response, under the presentation tab, that option to show a link to submit another response will be grayed out. So some of these settings kind of work together or work against you depending on what mood you're in. We do have to make sure that we know exactly what we're doing because some of these options will be obsolete depending on what we have set it. Confirmation message is kind of a canned message right now. It'll say your response has been recorded. So students will see that information as soon as they hit the submit button. But this is a great opportunity to type in your own message where you can kind of personalize this, especially if we're not in the classroom. You may want to say thank you for your ideas or thank you for input. I will be in contact with you shortly, whatever you'd like to do. Teachers have also told us that what works really well is to provide students with a link in this confirmation message. So some people's message will say, thank you for filling out this information. If you'd like more as a resource, please visit this Google Doc, and then the teacher will paste that link to the Google Doc here in this message. The last tab for quizzes, this is kind of a really difficult thing to do. If you ever want to make a Google form a quiz, all we have to do is click this toggle. And I don't click and drag, it is just a simple left click to click on or off. But if you want to make this a quiz, Google will auto grade some of the questions for you, and that's what most people really like. I would recommend leaving the locked mode on Chromebooks, leave that unchecked for right now while we are engaged in distance learning, because we are not sure if every student is using a managed Chromebook. If students are using a personal Chromebook, they will not be able to complete this learning activity. If students are using a Windows device, they would not be able to complete the learning activity if this is checked. So right now, our recommendation is to leave this unchecked. Under release grade, this is kind of up to you if you want students to immediately see their grade after they submit the form. This is a great option if every question is something that can be auto-graded. So multiple choice questions are a great option for this. However, if you have short answer questions which require the teacher to go back and review those answers, most teachers will tell us as a best practice to turn this release grade option to later after manual review. And the reason why is if you have the grades released immediately and the questions are short answer, Google will a lot of times try to mark those questions incorrect or the answer is incorrect for students. And students will probably be a little bit on edge and say, why did I get this wrong when I had the correct answer? So to prevent some of the frustration and the anxiety, most teachers recommend to release the grade later after the teacher can go back in, make sure everything is correct, and actually have a more accurate grade available for students. Additionally, these respondents are our students. You can set it so that these students can see the missed questions, correct answers, and point values. These are options that you can choose. Some teachers will say, I don't want them to see the missed questions right away or the correct answers because I want some time for everyone to take this quiz, and then we're going to talk about it, and then I will go back and change this. Now, these settings, you will have to click Save in order to make them stick. I'm going to tell you that one thing I look for if I'm making something a quiz is this total points. I will only see point values associated with a quiz. So if I make some changes in my settings and I do not save those settings, I may not see total points. So I always double check to make sure I save my settings. I do want to point out that if you have the option to limit to one response, as a teacher, you're in control of this. So maybe you limit to one response for students for maybe the first week, but if you want students to reattempt, you go back into your settings and uncheck this. Last step is to save our settings. Now we've just made the change where students can attempt this quiz as many times as they want to. These settings will update and they will always change according to what you decide and when you click that save button. For more advanced options, some teachers recommend to choose the 3 dots and go into preferences. The option to collect email addresses can be set by default every time you create a Google form to be turned on. You want to do that here over in our preferences. You can also decide to make questions required and a quiz point value here under preferences just to save you time in building quizzes for the next time if they're on after.